You're blocking the way. Can't you roll somewhere else? Laughter broke out as the woman in the wheelchair tried to place her order. She didn't argue, just looked down at her lap quietly. 3 minutes later, the ground outside began to tremble. A Chinook helicopter descended directly in front of the diner. Who was she? And why did the military come for her? Welcome to Real Speak Diaries. Let's uncover what truly happened. A scorching summer afternoon in Jacksonville. Heat shimmered above the pavement. Ella Monroe, 63, silver-haired and wheelchair-bound, slowly wheeled herself toward a modest diner, the same one she visited every Saturday. Clad in a faded khaki coat, holding a paper sack and a weathered fabric purse, she entered with composed grace, eyes ahead, lips tight. A pack of young men blocked the narrow aisle between tables. "Move it! Park that thing somewhere else!" They burst into laughter. One mocked an elderly voice. "Excuse me, I'm only here for my memories." Nobody in the diner spoke out. A waitress looked over briefly, then turned away. Ella reversed slightly, said nothing, only let out a faint breath and waited patiently. When she finally made it to the counter, the server gave a heavy sigh. "We're at capacity, ma'am. You'll need to wait." A young woman behind Ella was called up instead, though she had clearly arrived afterward. Ella said nothing. She placed a wrinkled $10 note on the counter. No one acknowledged it. No one said sorry. She turned and exited just as silently as she had entered. A small boy nearby observed her, tugging at his mother's sleeve. "Why doesn't anyone help her?" his mother murmured. "Some people just grow used to being unseen." Ella's wheels gave a low whir on the linoleum. Her posture stayed upright, her gaze steady. Nothing about her reaction suggested this was unusual. The young men exchanged high fives as she passed, as though they'd achieved something admirable. Outside, the midday sun beat down without mercy. Ella paused a moment to adjust her cap, shielding her eyes from the brightness. A quick flicker of sorrow, fatigue, crossed her expression before it settled again into calm composure. Few noticed the tiny military pin pinned inside her jacket, only briefly visible when the breeze lifted the fabric. But not today. Today, someone did see her, just not the ones inside. Ella rolled away from the diner toward her regular bench in the park, beneath an old willow tree that offered shade in the blazing heat. In her paper bag was a small loaf of bread, bought earlier from the bakery near the back of the marketplace, and in a photograph, edges faded, corners curled with time, Ella stood in medical corps attire, surrounded by young soldiers, faces smeared with dirt, but smiling with relief. 1984. The Grenada conflict. Ella led a rapid response medical unit during the invasion. When enemy shells hit their field hospital, she orchestrated the rescue of 37 injured troops, carrying the last one herself, despite a chunk of shrapnel lodged in her shoulder. 1991. Deployed to Iraq during Operation Desert Storm. Military files noted her treatment of over 200 troops in just 3 weeks, many under direct fire. One evening, with dwindling supplies and mounting casualties, she performed 3 urgent surgeries by flashlight while artillery shells burst nearby. 1996, Ella's helicopter went down in Bosnia during a medevac mission. Spinal trauma, permanent nerve injury, medically retired after 22 years of service. No medals, no headlines, no ceremonial farewell for the career that effectively ended that day. She turned down all speaking invites, award events, and veteran reunions. When the Army tried to award her the Bronze Star, she skipped the presentation. "I was only doing my duty," was all she ever said. Her husband, a Chinook pilot, died in 2004 from a heart attack while instructing new aviators. Their daughter, now a physician working in Europe with Doctors Without Borders, calls now and then but seldom visits. Their connection had weakened after Ella withdrew from the world following her husband's passing. Since then, she lived quietly, never disclosing her veteran history to anyone around. She simply kept the photo and her medical insignia tucked away in her bag. 3 weeks ago, an email arrived at the local library she often visited. "We've been searching for you. You're not forgotten. Lieutenant Mark Dawson, 3rd Airborne Medical Division." Ella never replied, but today she brought that old photo with her, as if saying, If no more words could be shared, at least memory would walk with her. Each Saturday followed a set routine. The diner attempt, then the park, then the Veterans Memorial 3 blocks away that nobody knew she'd helped design. The engraving, honoring those who served without praise, was her suggestion. Though no one knew she meant herself, people walked past her unnoticed. The server who denied her service had no clue Ella once carried out emergency operations using only a pen light and basic field kit when generators went down during a sandstorm. The young men who ridiculed her couldn't imagine she once carried soldiers twice their weight through gunfire when stretchers ran out. Had no idea her hands, now stiff with arthritis, once had the precision to extract shrapnel within millimeters of a vital artery. Couldn't know her wheelchair was the cost she paid so 18 others could survive after her helicopter was brought down. The park bench where she rested had been dedicated to those who served. Ironically, she couldn't read the plaque from where she sat. Unusual for this neighborhood. She froze, bread paused midair. The vehicle slowed, stopping at the junction. 2 uniformed soldiers exited, scanning their surroundings. Ella carefully rewrapped her bread, slid the photograph deeper into her bag. For nearly 3 decades, she had guarded her silence, her privacy, her quiet pride. Had they finally found her? And if so, why now? 3 minutes after Ella exited the diner, the earth gave a faint tremor. A distant whoop-whoop grew louder, thunderous. Everyone in the diner stopped mid-meal, heads tilted upward. A huge Chinook helicopter descended onto the street just 50 meters from the diner's door. Its hatch opened. Dust swirled. 6 soldiers in special ops gear stepped out, forming a line, saluting in flawless sync. Their commander was Lieutenant Colonel Mark Dawson, the very man Ella had saved in Iraq when he was only 19, bleeding out from a wound that should have killed him. The same man who had spent years searching for her after she vanished from the Army's records. "We're here for Captain Ella Monroe." The diner went still. A waitress dropped a glass. The group of young men shrank into their booth, breathless. Someone whispered, "She was military." "Not just military," one soldier said, his voice rising in the silence. "She's a legend among medics, the ghost doc of Desert Storm." Ella, still at the park bench, was unaware of the growing stir nearby. A compact military vehicle rolled toward her. A young uniformed man stepped out, bowing his head. "Ma'am, the unit would like to meet you. They've waited 28 years. Ella's face stayed calm, but her hand quivered slightly on her wheelchair's armrest. She nodded once, barely. The soldier offered his hand, but she declined with a wave. "I've made it on my own this long." She descended the ramp they quickly laid out, her silver hair lifting in the breeze, her face not surprised, just calm, as if this moment had always been coming. Upon arrival, Dawson removed his cap, knelt, and offered a small box containing the Bronze Star Medal, an honor for valor Ella had never received. "You saved lives, Captain. We came to remember that." Onlookers stood frozen. Someone hit record. An older woman wiped her eyes. A mother from the diner had followed the noise. She lifted her son to see better. "Remember that lady from earlier?" The boy nodded. "She's not invisible anymore." Dawson's voice rang out as he read the award citation. Captain Ella Monroe, during Operation Desert Storm, with full disregard for her own life, rendered medical care under active fire. When evacuation was delayed, she continued life-saving support for 18 hours straight, saving 37 gravely injured personnel. The diner crowd had gathered outside, hushed. The waitress who had turned her away now covered her mouth, eyes wide with realization and regret. Later in Bosnia, Captain Monroe was severely hurt while trying to reach downed troops. Despite her own wounds, she organized aid for others until help arrived, ensuring no lives were lost in a mission that by all expert accounts should have claimed at least a dozen. Ella's calm expression never wavered, though a single tear traced down her cheek as her former unit gathered around her wheelchair. Each soldier stepped forward with introductions. "My father served in Basra. You saved his leg. You delivered my brother in a bunker while bombs fell overhead. I was the medic you trained. Everything I know began with you." A younger soldier moved forward, voice trembling. "My mother was on your last flight out of Bosnia. Every birthday, she reminds me I'm here because of you." The helicopter's rotors stayed still, yet its presence sent waves through the quiet crowd. Phones captured the moment. Conversations hushed in reverence. The same young men from the diner tried to slip away. Lieutenant Dawson noticed. "Gentlemen, care to meet the woman you mocked earlier?" They stopped, faces flushed. Ella lifted her hand. "That won't be necessary, Lieutenant Colonel." But he pressed, "Captain Monroe, they ought to know." Her voice, seldom heard in public now, rang out with firm clarity. Respect isn't taught through shame. They simply didn't understand. One of the boys stepped forward anyway, eyes down. "Ma'am, we're sorry." Ella, as a Sentios, nodded. The brief moment carried more meaning than any grand apology. A young lieutenant offered a folded flag. "From the unit you saved, we've carried your name with us every deployment." Dawson turned to the assembly. "We've searched for Captain Monroe for years to honor her service. She turned down every attempt, saying only she did her duty." He faced Ella. "Captain, your duty exceeded what was ever asked. Today, we give back the honor you've long deserved." The soldiers raised their hands in a unified salute. From her chair, Ella returned it flawlessly, muscle memory undiminished by time or trauma. As onlookers remained silent, Dawson leaned close and whispered, "Why did you stay hidden, Captain?" She met his eyes, steady and honest. "Because the work mattered more than recognition." Dawson nodded slowly. "And now?" She exhaled. "Now I'm simply too tired to keep running." When was the last time someone finally got the recognition they were long denied? Share your thoughts on justice below. The next morning's local headline read, "The unseen hero, Captain Ella Monroe, finally honored." Ella accepted an offer to move into a respected veterans home in North Carolina, a facility with care and peers who understood sacrifice. After some hesitation, she agreed. "I've been alone long enough," she told Dawson. The diner installed a small plaque near the door. "We didn't see her before, but we'll never forget her again." The young waitress left flowers at the park the next day, but Ella was gone. In her place stood a bench etched with, "For those who served quietly." Lieutenant Colonel Dawson contacted Ella's daughter. Both attended the formal award ceremony at Fort Bragg. Her daughter wept. "I never knew who my mother truly was until today." Ella responded softly, "I just needed you to understand." The event remained intimate by Ella's request. No national media, no officials, just soldiers, present and past, honoring one of their own. A foundation in Ella's name was created, supplying specialized wheelchairs for injured veterans. The diner's owner delivered a handwritten apology with a promise. "Your meals are always free, Captain." Ella declined. "I don't want special treatment, only equal treatment for all." The young men who had ridiculed her sent a letter to her new residence. Inside was a donation receipt to the Veterans Hospital and a pledge to volunteer monthly. Ella pinned their note next to her bronze star. When asked why, she said, "Redemption outweighs punishment." At the veterans' home, Ella finally shared her stories. Not tales of danger or medals, but moments of humor, connection, and raw humanity from war zones. Her medical knowledge took new shape as she mentored young military doctors preparing to serve. "Medicine's the easy part," she explained. "It's seeing the human behind the injury that saves lives." 6 months after the helicopter landing, a filmmaker approached Ella to tell her story. "Why now?" he asked, given her past refusals. Ella paused. "Because it's not about me anymore. It's about all the unseen people, the ones with scars or crutches or quiet pain. If my story makes someone think twice before judging, then it's worth it." The filmmaker nodded. "And the helicopter landing, was that your idea?" Ella laughed then, bright and unfiltered. "Subtlety has never been our military's specialty." What amazed her most in her new life wasn't the praise or the peace. It was the release from hiding. The freedom to just be Captain Ella Monroe, not only the woman in the wheelchair. In her new space, she hung a long-hidden photo on the wall. Beneath it, she placed the crumpled napkin from that last diner visit. A symbol that journeys often end not where we expect, but where they're meant to. Some people give their lives to service, yet remain invisible. A woman in a chair may have once carried hundreds to safety. Being overlooked doesn't hurt like being misjudged. That day, when the Chinook descended on the street, the crowd didn't turn just because of the sound. They turned because they finally saw what had always been there. Sometimes the truest heroes are defined not by medals but by lives they quietly shaped. And sometimes, it takes a thunderous arrival on helicopter rotors to open our eyes to someone we never noticed. The diner still stands on that street corner. The park bench still rests beneath the willow. But now, when someone in a wheelchair enters, every door is held open, every path made clear, every glance filled with respect. Sometimes change rides in on the wings of a helicopter. If you believe silent heroes deserve recognition, not neglect, subscribe to Real Speak Diaries. We tell real stories of dignity, justice, and honor that endures.